Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's growth call. I'm going to say hello to everybody on the Hangout and those of you guys watching on YouTube. For this call, you feel free to post comments on the YouTube chat and we'll get to them as we can. If you would like to join us here in the Hangout, feel free to click the link in the YouTube chat, or we've also posted the link on Slack as well. We hold these growth calls every week to discuss how the Bisq network has been doing and what we can do to further its growth even more. We like to think of Bisq as the only true decentralized Bitcoin exchange that takes three principles very seriously: user privacy, user security, and resistance to censorship. That last item, censorship resistance, took a huge step forward earlier this week on Monday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern with the launch of the Bisq DAO with the version 1.0 of the Bisq software. It was a huge landmark event for the Bisq project, the Bisq network. And if you haven't seen the launch event, it's on YouTube. I highly recommend you check it out. It was a fun event. We had lots of people, lots of users, contributors, and even folks from the past join in and help us celebrate the publishing of the BSQ Genesis transaction, as well as the launch of the actual version 1.0 software afterward. For today, the agenda we have is we'll do a market update as usual, talk about how the Bisq network has been doing in terms of liquidity, and then we'll go over some questions with the DAO launch. A lot of folks are seeing the DAO for the first time, BSQ for the first time, and naturally there are questions. So we'll go through some of the most common questions we've received so far. And if you guys have any questions, in addition to that, feel free to submit them and we'll answer them here or then as well. So anything else to mention? Yeah, I guess before we get started, I mean, with respect to the Bisq DAO, Bitcoin Magazine just published an article about an hour ago on that I think pretty well summarizes the effort and the launch. So feel free to check that out on Bitcoin Magazine. Just about a day ago, yesterday and Wednesday, we confirmed attendance to Bitcoin 2019, the conference in San Francisco, put on by the Bitcoin Magazine. And yeah, we'll be there. So just keep that in the back of your mind. It's going to be happening at the end of June. So a little bit of time to make arrangements if you'd like to join that. And also in the works is a podcast with the Honorable Peter McCormack, What Bitcoin Did podcast, probably happening in about a month from now, early to mid-May. We still have to hammer out the details for that, but we'll be on there as well. So keep your eyes out for that. Yeah, as far as, I guess, market update, Christoph, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's quite exciting times in the Bisq network at the moment. So also not only because of the Bisq DAO launch, which we had on Monday, but also regarding market. We had a crazy 4 to 5 days on Bisq, especially in the Monero market. I think we had roughly $3 million worth traded. It was in total more than 600 trades, and more than 570 Bitcoin were exchanged. So that's pretty crazy, because at the moment I think we are around 3.9 million in total volume this month, and yeah, 3 million just came to this number in the last couple of days. Yeah, so it's really hard to estimate how it will turn out for the rest of the month. If everything is possible, I would say we might realistically end somewhere between 4.5 to 6.5 million. So it's a big range, of course. But yeah, if we have days like the last couple of days for a whole month, we are beyond 15 million easily. So it's, yeah, if one market just explodes, Bisq can handle it, and yeah, it really works, and that's the great news. Yeah. So besides that, I wanted to point out we have a new market on Bisq, as you probably know, BSQ. we launched the Bisq DAO, and BSQ is an essential part of it. We had already 84 trades and 6 Bitcoin in total traded. And if we just look at this time frame, since the BSQ is available on Bisq, it's already the second biggest market so far. And if you want to buy or sell BSQ, there are 28 offers live at the moment, as I checked before the call. So that's also great news. Yeah, that's all from my side regarding the market.
Excellent. Yes, liquidity is certainly great news. If you're familiar with how the DAO works, liquidity is essential for it to work. Contributors only get, I mean, the funding for contributors' compensation comes from trading fees. And so it's absolutely essential that we get liquidity. It's in everybody's interest for liquidity to be boosted and grown as much as possible. So it's very, very welcome news, especially now with the DAO launch. All right, so I guess we can move on to DAO questions and common questions that people have had since the launch. I guess we can start out with some of the more simpler, relatively minor questions that people have had, and then move on to some of the more involved ones. So the first one that we've got, and this is mainly for contributors, is people who were part of the BSQ Genesis transaction. If you submitted your mainnet BSQ address to us to be a part of the transaction. When you open your client, the software, for the first time, you might notice that the mainnet address that you get is different than the one that you specified. And the reason for that is every time you do a transaction, you have a new address generated. It's how it's supposed to work, and so it's nothing to be worried about as long as your wallet is showing the balance that you specified that you were supposed to get in the Genesis transaction. Then you're good. There's nothing to worry about there. Another question that we get is how to actually buy and sell BSQ. I think some people were a little confused that if BSQ is just Bitcoin, then why can't I, how do you do that? And the answer is that while BSQ is technically Bitcoin, the way it works in the software is it's configured to be an altcoin account. So to buy or sell BSQ, you need to go into the accounts, the account section of the software and the altcoins tab, and you'll add a new account there and just make it a BSQ account. And you'll get your address from, in the DAO section, there's a BSQ wallet, and then receive. The address that's in that section is the address that you put in to the account when you go to create it. And from that point, you can buy and sell BSQ for BTC. I believe this is in the docs. I'll dig up the relevant doc and add it so that folks can see how that's done a little easier. And two more things, I guess. One is we've got a couple people on Twitter were asking about, I haven't been following the DAO. I don't really know how it works. I don't really plan to spend the time to figure it out. What do I need to know? Does anything change? Quick answer to that question is not a whole lot changes for you as a trader. Number one, you can keep using Bisq as you were before. If you want to keep paying Bitcoin fees, you can. Bitcoin fees are not going up. They're the same. But the one thing you should know is that BTC fees do not go directly to they don't go to contributors to sustain the project. BSQ fees are distributed to contributors to compensate them for their work in maintaining Bisq. The details of how that works and why that is, I don't think it's worth going into here. I think we've lots of videos and interviews and docs and all that kind of stuff to explain that. It's a little bit novel of a mechanism, and it's not the easiest to explain in 5 or 10 seconds. But that's the takeaway that you need to know is that BSQ fees help to sustain the project. BTC fees don't. If you use BSQ fees to pay for your trades, you will save a lot of money. And so it's advisable that you do that both to save money and to help the project. So that's kind of the need to know item there. And the other item is, and I don't know, Christoph, you might be able to use your help here, but initially we had some issues with syncing, and blocks were not being propagated to all the nodes on the network. And the hotfix, I believe, was supposed to help with that.
Yeah, it was version 1.01, where we added this possibility that every client is rebroadcasting these blocks. We also call this not only the Bitcoin blocks, we have our own blocks in our peer-to-peer network, and to be able to distribute them faster, we now rebroadcasting them through all the clients. So if you're looking into let me just quickly share my screen.
Maybe can add a little bit. There are still a little bit issues that new blocks are not very well distributed through the whole network. And when you, when you are in this case, then you see under a footer a progress bar which keeps spinning, so that DAO syncing is not complete. You receive a new block over the Bitcoin J side, but not from the peer-to-peer network. And at the moment, the only fix is to restart the application, then it should work again. The more users who have updated to the latest version, the better situation is, because then every normal client will rebroadcast those messages. And as said, in the beginning, only the seed nodes, the full nodes, have broadcasted these messages, and that was not enough to be distributed well to the whole network. And also because there are not so many users have updated, all the old users are not part of that, they don't understand the message, they ignore it. So it's only, it will take a few days more until the network is more stable with this. It's not a major concern and should be resolved by itself soon.
Manfred, for my client, especially at the moment, I see there are 9 peer-to-peer network peers on the lower right, and I'm in sync with 8 peers. Is this number, these 8 peers, of the live peers or historically?
Yeah. No, it's when you start up, you get usually this consensus data from the seed nodes. So that's why when you start up, you only see the number 2, like you see here in the lower lines. When you are fully connected, then you will receive from your connected peers these hashes of every block, and the same then with proposals and blind votes. So it grows up basically to the number of connected peers. But it seems that one peer of your connected peers doesn't have the new version installed, as it's still on 0.9, and then of course you don't receive it. So don't worry too much about the number. When you would see a conflict, which should be very rare, you can click on this line, and then you see in the lower table if it's a seed node or if it's a normal node. When it's a seed node, please report it to the developers. When it's a normal node, you can also report it, but then it's usually less critical. It can be just one local node has some issue, and after restart, usually it's resolved.
Yeah, you just saw probably the syncing right now. So the progress bar was
okay,
just, I'm okay, yeah.
Yeah, also it's normal when there is a new block, it takes usually 1 second until the block is distributed. So you see it very quickly, and the block get processed, which is very fast. But when it keeps syncing for longer, like 10 seconds, I would say, then restart the application and it should then work. Sometimes you need to restart maybe a second time, but usually it works at the next restart. And as said, the more people who have updated to the latest version, the better it is for the whole network, and it should be hopefully in 1 week. That's not the issue anymore. We have also added some more features for making this more resilient, but that will come in the next release. I don't know, maybe next week or so.
Cool. Yeah, so I think one more thing on the DAO that I think we should talk about is asset listing dynamic. We've got a lot of questions about that recently as well. The DAO changes that a little bit. So there's a mechanism for paying for asset listing. So as of right now, it's I believe it's a 1 BSQ per day with a 30-day minimum to have an asset listed for a trial period. These are DAO parameters. The fee can change by voting, but the idea is that if you want to have an asset listed on Bisq, there's a minimum trade volume that the asset needs to hit in order to remain listed. But for new assets, you can call it kind of a grace period where your asset would be exempt from that limit while it's in this trial period. And this trial period is a paid period, currently 1 BSQ per day, and 30-day minimum run. And yeah, so that's how that goes. The initial listing, actually making the pull request to get the asset listed on Bisq, is something that you would have to be responsible for. Anybody can do it, so you don't have to be officially affiliated with the coin or the project that you're looking to list, but it is something you would have to be responsible for doing. We have very strict requirements for how to actually make the pull request in the documentation. There's a doc that goes over all that, and then yeah, once it's in the software, then keeping it listed, giving it a grace period requires a fee, and hopefully you can get the volume above the minimums that are set to stop having to pay the fee. But that's how that works.
Maybe I can add a little bit. Also, basically anybody could pay this fee, also it doesn't have to be the coin issue or whatever. And this minimum trade amount is 0.01 Bitcoin over the last 120 days. So it's very tolerant, I think. When there's not even $100 traded over 4 months, then I think it's no reason to have this listed. People who have still offers or trade, they can continue even if it is still listed. It's basically only for new users who have not set up already an account. They probably will not find another trader because, when it's delisted, you will not find easily another trader because nobody can set up a new account. So there are some high incentives when your coin is not traded enough to pay this fee to be in this trial period. And with that, hopefully we have a kind of like a economic incentive that that coins are only visible in the application which are really active and really traded, and we don't want to have thousands of coins which are basically dead and nobody's interested in.
Yeah. And let me just check the chat to see if there's any other questions. So let's see, we have our BTC trading fees the same as before the DAO. If devs don't get BTC fees, where does it go? How much will trading fees be reduced if I use BSQ tokens? How do I know how many BSQ tokens I'll need? It's a lot of questions. I guess, so the first question, are BTC fees the same? Yes, they are the same. BTC fees have not gone up or down. As far as where do they go, they're not going anywhere in particular. I mean, they're going to a wallet. I don't, so before they were going to arbitrators, I believe now they are still going to arbitrators. Is that correct?
No, they're going to donation address, isn't it? Or is it still?
Soon. So we need to make a small code change, and somebody need to register this donation address in the DAO, also to make a request for being the owner of this donation address. So probably in 2 months, roughly, we change this then, and then the Bitcoin end up in this donation address. The owner of this donation address, his duty is to buy up BSQ on the market with this Bitcoin and then burn the BSQ with this proof of burn. He can prove it that he has burned the BSQ, and by burning BSQ, he makes basically the same economic effect. It's just a manual process. It's a bonded roll, so the person cannot steal the money because he has to set up a lot of BSQ bonds. And until then somebody has taken this role, it goes on like now. The arbitrators receive this fees, and afterwards the arbitrators will start, like other contributors, to make compensation requests.
Yeah, so they fees, BTC fees, in short, they're not going directly to the contributors, distributed to all contributors. They're going to one place. Right now it's arbitrators. It's going to change to a donation address soon. How much will trading fees be reduced if I use BSQ tokens? I believe the intention is for it to be 90%. It's 90%, quite a huge discount. And you'll see it when you go to make a trade. There's a little toggle switch for BTC fees and BSQ fees, and it approximates the amount of money that you're spending for each. And you'll see that the BSQ fees are dramatically less for BSQ. And in terms of how do I know how many BSQ tokens I'll need, it's not an exact amount. I mean, you're never going to buy enough BSQ for just one trade. You'll probably have to buy a little bit more than that, and it's just a judgment call you'll have to make of how many Bisq trades you expect to make, and how much BSQ does it make sense to buy at one time. I think it's really up to you how many tokens you think is worth buying.
I can quickly maybe share my screen. Because I was myself interested what's the actual difference in the fees for a big trade, like a 2 Bitcoin trade with Monero. And maybe I share the screen quickly, 1 second. Is it visible? Do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it depends if you're the maker or the taker. The maker pays 0.1% of the fee. That's here, the upper side. And when you would pay with Bitcoin, it would be $9 roughly, as it was yesterday's price. And it depends always on the latest trade price in BSQ. I think the trade price is roughly between $1 and $2 in BSQ for 1 BSQ. And the BSQ price was roughly $1. So roughly 80–90% difference between the two numbers. When you are the taker, you pay 0.3% fee, so it's more expensive for the taker. And of course, the difference is, or the absolute numbers are bigger. So when you would pay in Bitcoin, it's $28 for a 2 Bitcoin trade, for the highest amount that you can trade on Bisq with altcoins. And when you would pay in BSQ, it would be 3 BSQ, which is was at this time €3 more or less. So yeah, you save considerable money when you choose to use BSQ.
Yeah, that's a big difference in a dual purpose. You save money and you also help sustain the project. So it's a quite a good deal, I think. Let's see, are BSQ tokens only available on the Bisq market? Yes, BSQ can only be bought on Bisq. Any other questions? I'll wait a couple seconds.
Maybe there was one question. It was on Slack regarding editing of existing offers, because some had the issue when they wanted to edit their existing offers in the new client, that the confirm button was disabled. So they were able to click on edit and then maybe change the percentage price or the fixed price, but then they were not able to save it. The reason for that is we increased the minimum deposit with new version. And if the offer you have created in the past is below the minimum deposit, then you can't edit them at the moment. This might change for crypto-to-crypto trades in one of the next releases. As we said it, they are back. But yeah, one way would be to disable them. You can delete them, create new ones. Or if you really need to change it, you could also try to go back to an older version, change the percentage, and then use the new version again. But yeah, that's just a grace period until you have your new offers in place. And yeah, so but And also in the new version, you will get a pop-up that informs you that you can't edit these offers because they are not valid regarding the security deposit. Yeah. So that's the problem with the edit offer at the moment. And everything can be changed by fee voting. By vote, not fee voting, by voting in the Bisq DAO.
Yeah, that brings us maybe to a not so positive aspect. Also, this change in the 0.01 with increasing or with decreasing the maximum trade limit and with increasing the security deposit was an attempt to stop a chargeback scammer, which became active over the last days. And we got some reports from some users, and unfortunately, it turned out we blocked him immediately with the data. What we saw from the reports are, also the blocking works in a way that there is a peer-to-peer message which I can send out. It's signed, so nobody else could do this, and every user received this, and this data is then used for banning certain users or certain bank accounts or certain currencies. So there's different things what we can block with this. It's mainly a security feature which is used in such cases. It's designed in a way that I cannot abuse it. So every user, there is a program argument flag, ignore def messages. When a user will set this to true, then he would ignore this message. He receive it, but they don't do anything with the message. So that's as a protection for abuse from the one who has this power. But of course, when somebody would ignore it now and get scammed, then yeah, we cannot help him. He's running into a knife. So it's mainly for such emergency cases when we have such a situation with a stolen bank account scammer, and we need to try to do all in our power to stop this guy. Unfortunately, it turned out that he changed his onion address, which made it then harder to stop him. And he changed, and he had many different stolen bank accounts used already. So we had, unfortunately, today extend the blocking to a broader range. We don't specify too much because we don't want to give him too much information. But basically, it should be safe now from, also, many users will be affected now. They cannot trade anymore. But unfortunately, that's the price at the moment to stop this. We're working on further improvements and protections, but that will take time and will require software updates. So I hope we have really stopped him now. If you have, we will publish on the forum. Please follow the forum. That will be the main channel for updates and information. We will publish a list of all their bank accounts and onion addresses, what we know, what the scammer used. So if you had any trade with those, please get in touch with private message, and we are discussing further steps. We try to, if you get a chargeback, also before you're reacting, get in touch. We are trying to cooperate there to not create more damage for the victims and to basically try to. Yeah, let's discuss this then when it's more. We still are in the process of gathering information and see how big the damage is. It's roughly, I think, maybe 5 chargeback cases what we're aware, but it could be more. I estimate that was maybe 10 or 20 trades all in all. So yeah, we'll see how it continues over the next weeks, and hopefully we stopped this scammer. And yeah, it unfortunately shows that the fiat system with extending their flawed security, because the main problem is that those banks have not two-factor authentication. Also, it's mainly German banks and also some Netherlands banks, but it's just such a shame that after I don't know how many years, two-factor authentication is basically standard everywhere, and the banks are still not implementing. Another big problem is that banks are not informing users when there are transfers. Just to send out the message that there have been some movement on the account would stop the scam much, much faster when people get aware very quickly, and it doesn't take 2 weeks or so. So that's, I think, the cause of the big problem, that it's still too easy for criminals to steal bank accounts and to use them. And yeah, and the banker just delegate it to the one who is receiving it and try to do the chargeback, or when you cannot do the chargeback, you get into the trouble to explain that you are not in collusion with the scammer or whatever. And of course, for Bisq, it's also very bad that we are getting basically under pressure here, and we will do everything to to limit the damage as far as possible and to stop this scam. I hope it doesn't escalate further, because unfortunately it shows that dealing with fiat is very problematic, unfortunately, and we need to make it secure. That like we didn't have any chargeback in SEPA over the past 3 years, but it seems that the current security tools are not sufficient, and we need to improve and increase this. Otherwise, we have to block it before we have this under control. Otherwise, people are at risk. So I said, we will keep you posted. We couldn't be super public from the beginning, because we wanted to avoid to warn basically the scammer that he find out that we are tracking him, and that he learn how to change his behavior. That it's not too easy to stop him. But I think now we are publishing everything what we can, and if you had any trade with this guy, please get in direct contact, and we follow up there.
All right. That's all I have. Does anybody have any other questions or comments or remarks they'd like to make?
Not from my side, so I'm good so far.
Okay. Let's wait a couple seconds for anybody to post in the YouTube chat. Oh, API.
Yeah, basically it was on our roadmap that the API will be the next highest priority after the DAO launch. Unfortunately, with this chargeback problems, we have to change our focus to add some more protection mechanisms, and that will be probably the work of the next weeks, and probably will deploy it in steps. So please update with every release, because with every release we will add some protection. It will not come in one big release. As soon as we have one protection in place, we will make a release, and everybody who updates get a better protection. So it's really highly recommended to update quickly. When you still have not updated to 1.0.1, please update, because the changes with the trade limit and with the higher security deposit is already a protection, and you shouldn't miss this. With all versions, you are not protected with this.
All right. Well, if that's everything, then
I think one user asked regarding altcoins. Also, this scam, of course, is only fiat related. On altcoins, luckily, there is no no chargeback risk, and there's basically zero scam risk. So it's only related at the moment. We only have this on SEPA. We hope the scam is not extending to other payment methods. And we try to limit it to those banks areas where we have the information that he's active. It can be extended to further when we see that he's going on, but at the moment it's limited to some markets, and it's not a topic for altcoins at all.
all right. Well, that's all for now. I guess thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you back here again next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.